I suspect they're going to want to announce this, get rolling with the promotion. There's a lot of history there. And you have Armin sit in the front row and you say he is next. Like, let's get some decorum here. Let's start figuring out who's next. What's the pecking order? People misunderstood what I was trying to say. They're like, what? You're saying Paddy above Armin? No, I'm not saying. But if you watch fighting for more than 6 months, you understand that a lot of this is based on timing, not always on merit. Number one contender is without a doubt, without question.
Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. Every fighter sitting on the sidelines right now, waiting for their perfect moment, their ideal matchup, their dream scenario. They're not being strategic. They're being cowards. And that cowardice is exactly what separates the wannabes from the legends who actually get remembered. Because while you're sitting there crafting the perfect plan, calculating every angle, someone hungrier is already kicking down the door and taking what should have been yours.
At least as of now, that fight isn't scheduled, believe it or not, for the January PLE, if you will. Still not sure what to call it. Are we calling it pay-per-view still? What are we calling these?
Numbered event.
I don't feel like it rolls off the tongue.
And that's what it's called.
It sounds like that's not the plan. What I'm hearing the plan is frontrunner Kayla versus Amanda. Now, could they do both? Sure, of course. Why not? But I'm not hearing that that's a part of the mix. And so if that's not a part of the mix, if it's not Paddy versus Ilia...
Listen, I've watched this pattern destroy more careers than I can count. Fighters get caught up in this grand illusion that patience equals wisdom, that waiting for the right opportunity shows discipline and fight IQ. But here's what really happens when you buy into that lie. You convince yourself you're being smart, playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. Meanwhile, the real killers in this sport are out there actively creating their moments, forcing the UFC's hand, making themselves impossible to ignore. They're not waiting for Dana White to call them up with the perfect offer. They're making Dana White's phone ring because he can't afford not to book them.
This one is Sydney, and now we're talking about, and obviously it's not happening there, and now we're talking about March. Like, there's no way. Armin versus Ilia is the #1 fight in the lightweight division. And dare I say, it's close. It's close to as big as Paddy versus Ilia, given how popular Armin is getting in that part of the world and just how good he looked in this fight. And so I say, if we're not doing it on January 24th, and it sounds at least as of now that we're not, scrap those plans. Ilia, Armin.
The difference between a contender and a champion isn't talent. It isn't even skill. It's this relentless, uncompromising drive to seize control of your own destiny. True champions don't just win fights and call it a day. They control the entire narrative. They make themselves so fundamentally critical to the ecosystem that the organization literally cannot function without them. Think about it. When Conor McGregor was rising, did he wait his turn? When John Jones was demolishing light heavyweights, was he patient? These guys grabbed the sport by the throat and bent it to their will.
It was the plan, it was the right move when Armin just fought. It was the plan, the right move when Armin was out. When we didn't know how this fight was going to go.
Okay.
When there were a lot of questions about his health, could he make the weight? Is his back okay? All this stuff. Now that he looked like that, we gotta move on. We have to do it. I'm sorry.
So couldn't Armin get the fight, the winner?
Yeah, but then we're talking about Armin not fighting for like 10 months. If this fight isn't happening in January, and then let's say March at the earliest, right? Because it's not going to happen in Sydney.
So here's the question that's going to separate you from everyone else still making excuses. Are you making yourself so valuable, so undeniably essential that they can't overlook you? Or are you just another fighter hoping someone notices your potential? Because hope isn't a strategy in this game. Hope gets you cut from the roster while hungrier fighters are already signing contracts. The harsh reality is this: that perfect moment you're waiting for, it doesn't exist. And while you're waiting for it to appear, someone else is creating their own perfect moment right now.
Oh, October? Oh, we're talking about another year out for Armin?
I understand that from the Armin Sarukian perspective, but if we're touching all the chess pieces, right? If we're accounting for every piece on the board, I think you only get one shot with Paddy and Ilia. And you have to take it.
Paddy beats Gaethje. That is not a risk. You're not putting him in there against Armin. Paddy beats Gaethje for sure. You
for sure?
I think look, obviously not for sure.
What's Paddy?
But here's where it gets even more brutal. All that organizational chatter you hear, all those discussions about timing and perfect matchups and ideal circumstances, that's just noise designed to keep you passive. It's the sound of fighters who have already lost the mental battle before they even step into the octagon. Real champions, the ones forged in the fire of actual combat, They don't care who's standing across from them or when the fight happens. Their battle IQ isn't just high, it's constantly operating at maximum capacity, ready for war at any moment.
Like Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, those guys are not in their primes. Like,
who do you think wins, GC? Patty or Gaethje?
Yeah, Patty, but I'm not sold on it. I do agree with Rick that you kind of do only have the one shot at Patty versus Ilia. It's just like in the fight game, these plans that you lay out can so easily get
Well, what the hell? Then what do we do with Armin?
he gets the winner.
What the hell? Then he's the guy's out fighting for a year.
And at that point, that would mean one fight since UFC
Awful.
300.
Oh, it's awful.
From UFC 300 to like UFC like 335, you would have.
Hey, what is he, Kamaru Usman?
If we're coming at this from the perspective of what's best for Armin Tsarukyan, I agree.
Them always
A true warrior doesn't have complex battle plans in the traditional sense. What they have is a constant state of readiness, an instinct for violence, and one strategy that never fails: pure, undiluted aggression applied with surgical precision. The second you show hesitation, the instant you reveal any weakness in that iron resolve, that opportunity gets snatched by someone more savage, someone willing to do what you won't. The octagon doesn't wait for anyone to get comfortable. It rewards the fighters who bring chaos and impose their will immediately.
Coming from the perspective of what's best for the UFC,
Is there a big difference between Patty? Yeah.
yes.
It would attract a much wider audience. It would attract more casuals, but man, from a meritocracy standpoint, it's Armin.
I literally just said, like, I don't really rate the wins that Paddy Pimblett has on his resume. Like, I
How
don't
do you rate
make
this
any
one?
secret
How do you
about it.
rate this one? Is beating Hooker bigger than beating Chandler?
Honestly, they're probably at the same
They're about
point
the
in their
same.
career in the way that they both dominated each of them.
But-
I kind of rate them the same.
But beating Charles Oliveira, to me, matters more than...
Now I know what some of you are thinking. But what about strategy? What about game planning? And look, I get it. There's value in preparation. But here's what separates understanding a concept from actually mastering it. You have to dig deeper than surface-level observations. You need to understand the why behind every decision, every adaptation, every moment of brilliance that separates winners from losers in this unforgiving sport. Champions aren't just motivated by belts or money. They're driven by something darker, more primal. The need to prove their dominance is absolute and undeniable.
If you ask me who I think is the best lightweight on the planet right now, it's Armin Tsarukyan. I think Armin Tsarukyan is the best lightweight on the planet right now.
Oh, better than Ilia.
And I thought that he was number 2 behind Islam. As soon as Islam left that division, I think he's the best lightweight on the planet. But if you're asking me to run the UFC's business, if Paddy Pimblett is there, he's now ranked number 5 in their rankings. I believe I saw
they moved him
graphics
up. They
being
moved him
made
up.
about.
Dan What is that?
Dan Hooker moved down.
You-
You got to move Patty up.
You take this shot
crazy,
while
by
you
the way.
have it. You take this shot.
The fighters who truly understand this game, they're not just fighting to win. They're fighting to break their opponent's spirit, to impose their will so completely that there's no question who the superior fighter is. That's what real fight intelligence looks like. It's not about having the perfect technique or the most sophisticated game plan. It's about possessing the mental fortitude to adapt, overcome, and dominate regardless of circumstances. Because when you step into that cage, all your careful planning can crumble in seconds.
On Monday.
I feel like they've been coming out on Mondays lately.
Oh, and also Hooker losing to Armin shouldn't necessarily drop you down. Like, that's the number 1 guy. You shouldn't get penalized for losing to the top guy.
Paddy's number 5. We don't need to think about it.
I think it was the way that he lost.
Sure.
I'm with you on everything about Armin, every single bit of it. As I said, I think he's the best lightweight on the planet right now. I think he can beat Ilia Topuria. I think he probably will beat Ilia Topuria if they face off. I believe in Armin Tsarukyan.
Here's something that'll blow your mind about this sport. You constantly hear these conversations about potential postponements, hypothetical scenarios, and vague possibilities that might happen months down the road. Stop that thinking right now. This isn't some video game where you can pause and restart. This is the octagon, and the octagon does not wait for anyone to get their affairs in order. You want to understand what separates a competitor from a champion. It comes down to one undeniable fact. Champions are present in this exact moment, not fantasizing about some distant opportunity that may never materialize.
Do the best business, you do Paddy versus Ilia while you have this opportunity right now, and then Armin fights the winner. And if it's Ilia, you've got that same fight that you were angling toward, and it's built-in business. And if it's Paddy, who then beat Ilia Topuria, now you've got Armin versus that guy, which is even bigger. It's perfect for me from a business perspective. I think you just do it while you have it.
Foaming at the mouth to see Armin versus Ilia. Foaming at the mouth.
You'll get it. 2 fights from now.
You know what pisses me off about all this? I want to see Ilia versus Armin so bad. I want to see Ilia versus Islam so bad, and I feel like we're not getting.
True champions establish their dominance through an incredible display of raw, untamed aggression combined with tactical brilliance. But here's the harsh reality nobody talks about. Injuries, weight cuts, personal problems, financial struggles, these aren't excuses. They're just unavoidable conditions of this brutal game. In this sport, you either rise to the occasion and utterly prevail, or you get left behind. You cannot afford the luxury of waiting for an entire division to rearrange itself to accommodate your timeline. Champions don't wait for chances to appear. They rip them away from weaker competitors who thought they deserved them more.
Surprised that you're so down on Paddy versus Ilia.
I was going to say both those fights
They're not as
have
good as
Ilia
that.
Topuria in
I know.
them, and then the third one also has Ilia Topuria in it against Paddy Pimblett, which might be his biggest rival, dating back to what, 2021 with the hand sanitizer boy days.
No, 100%. Listen, I've been the one carrying the
That's why
Paddy
I'm
versus
surprised.
Ilia flag for all this time, and it's a tough day for the people who say that I only pick based on my relationships. No one's probably been meaner to me than Paddy, but like we got to call it like we see it.
And let me address something I keep hearing that's absolutely dangerous thinking. Some people claim certain fighters are guaranteed wins, that matchups are foregone conclusions. That's not just wrong, it's a perilous form of self-deception that'll get you knocked out cold. You need to stop imposing your personal fantasies and groundless optimism on the savage reality of combat sports. There are no certainties at the highest level of this game. The arena reveals every unverified claim, every piece of manufactured hype, tearing it down under the harsh light of brutal reality. The distinction between challengers and champions isn't just talent, though that matters. It's having a warrior's soul that's been forged through genuine, dangerous battles, through fights that push you to your absolute breaking point. You earn your shot at greatness by conquering legitimate threats head-on, not by avoiding them or hoping they disappear. Here's what separates the real from the fake. Frauds talk a big game, they build up hype and expectations. But winners fight, they struggle, they adapt, and they find a way to prevail when everything goes wrong. Speaking of things going wrong, let me destroy another dangerous myth. This isn't some strategic board game where your carefully crafted plans unfold perfectly. This is violent, high-stakes combat where million-dollar careers hang by threads thinner than spider webs. Those intricate strategies you spent months perfecting, they fall apart the instant a crucial call goes against you, or when an unexpected injury destroys everything you've built. Real champions don't just have a strategy. They have adaptable combat intelligence and the fighting spirit to create entirely new paths when their original plan gets shattered. You can't take time off just because your blueprint got derailed. In this game, you constantly adapt or you get buried by hungrier competition. The fight game doesn't award titles based on potential or social media buzz. It mercilessly exposes frauds, stripping away all pretense until you're forced to face the absolute best this sport has to offer. I'm talking about the elite killers, the undisputed top tier who step into that octagon to completely dominate their opposition. Unless you walk into that fire and break their will, crushing their spirit completely, you're not a champion. You're just another fighter hoping manufactured hype somehow translates to lasting success. But here's what most people completely misunderstand about championship-level fighting. This isn't just about having the sharpest technique or the most devastating finishing moves. Wake up, because that's amateur thinking right there. This is a complex, high-stakes battle where success depends on far more than physical prowess. True fight intelligence isn't just what your body can accomplish. It's understanding the complete landscape of this sport, both inside and outside the cage. Look at someone like Armin Tsarukyan. He's a technical specialist, a master of his craft. Then you have fighters who are lightning rods for attention and media coverage. The real battle isn't just about winning individual fights. It's about dominating the entire landscape, forcing the promotion to revolve around your undeniable presence and star power. Champions don't just compete, they master the complete storyline. They dictate narratives and create legacies so categorical, so utterly irrefutable, that they rise above all dispute or skepticism. And honestly, sometimes you have to ignore rankings completely because they can be utterly pointless distractions from what really matters. Getting dominated by an apex predator isn't just a loss on paper. It's a brutal diagnosis of flaws in your combat IQ and fighting spirit. You either learn from that harsh experience, transforming yourself through that crude reality, or you stay trapped in perpetual limbo, never reaching the peak you claim to want. The elite fighters operate on a completely different level of mastery that most competitors only dream about. It's not just physical ability, though that's undeniable. It's unmatched strategic genius and the precision of someone who demands absolute perfection from both themselves and their opponents. You can see that tactical brilliance in every decision they make, every adjustment they implement mid-fight. Now let me address something that's been bothering me about how people discuss this sport. This conversation isn't about corporate marketing strategies or calculated business decisions. When you're talking about elite killers, the supreme athletes who enter that cage ready to sacrifice everything, you need to understand what drives them. True champions don't wait for ideal situations or hold out for slightly bigger payouts. Genuine fight intelligence demands you face and conquer the most dangerous threats right now, in this moment. That mentality is forged in struggle and pressure, not in boardroom meetings with executives discussing profit margins. Do you think this sport rewards waiting? Let me correct that misconception immediately. This isn't chess where you can calculate moves 10 steps ahead. That window for legendary status, for legacy-defining battles that get remembered for generations, it closes incredibly fast. The harsh truth is this: if you're unwilling to leap into the fire today, that chance for greatness will be claimed by someone who's ready to seize their destiny instead of analyzing it to death. While you're debating perfect timing, someone else is already becoming the legend you thought you'd eventually become. Here's what really frustrates me about modern fight analysis. People get completely focused on recent events, minor controversies, and manufactured rivalries that are honestly just meaningless noise designed to distract from what actually matters. The cage exposes every piece of empty trash talk, revealing it means absolutely nothing if you can't back up your threats with raw, brutal skill that transcends all the promotional chatter. Champions don't just sense rivalry, they weaponize it. They convert that hostility into precise, savage execution inside the octagon where it actually counts. The question isn't who talks the loudest or has the flashiest social media presence. It's whose fighting will is so commanding that it forces opponents to break under pressure. Stop getting caught up in hollow drama and start recognizing what's real. What we're really discussing here, beyond the blood on the canvas or the roar of crowds, is the harsh reality of what it takes to not just survive, but excel in this relentless sport. True fight intelligence isn't about having fast hands and quick feet. It's about possessing the skill to adapt instantly when your world falls apart, about creating solutions instead of waiting for perfect conditions. So there you have it. The fighters sitting around waiting for ideal matchups are getting passed by hungrier competitors who understand that champions create their own opportunities through relentless action. This isn't about watching highlight reels or debating hypothetical scenarios. It's about grasping what it truly means to be supreme in the most demanding sport on earth. It's about claiming your destiny aggressively, without hesitation, without excuses. The window for legendary status doesn't stay open forever, and while you're planning the perfect approach, someone else is already walking through that door. So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Are you ready to stop waiting and start taking what's yours, or are you going to let another year slip by making excuses? If this breakdown opened your eyes to what real championship mentality looks like, smash that like button, subscribe for more brutal truths about combat sports, and hit the notification bell because we're just getting started. I'll see you in the next one. But let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core about the current landscape of this sport. We're living in an era where social media followers somehow get confused with actual fighting credentials, where manufactured beef gets more attention than legitimate championship pedigree. And that's creating a generation of fighters who think they can skip the foundational brutality that creates real champions. They see someone blow up overnight and think that's the blueprint, completely missing the years of savage grinding that happened before the cameras started rolling. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes that nobody wants to acknowledge. The fighters who truly dominate this sport, the ones who create legacies that last decades, they're not just training their bodies. They're rewiring their entire psychological framework to operate under the most extreme pressure imaginable. While pretenders are posting workout videos and trash talk compilations, real killers are in the gym at 5 a.m., drilling scenarios that 99% of fighters will never even encounter. They're preparing for the moment when everything goes wrong simultaneously. And speaking of things going catastrophically wrong, let me destroy another fantasy that's poisoning fighter mentality right now. This idea that you can control the narrative, that you can dictate how your career unfolds through careful planning and strategic positioning. That's corporate thinking, not warrior thinking. The Octagon doesn't care about your 5-year plan or your brand development strategy. It cares about one thing: who can impose their will when 2 elite killers are locked in a cage with nowhere to run. The fighters who understand this at a cellular level, they don't just prepare for victory, they prepare for chaos. They train for the moment when their corner is screaming contradictory advice, when they're hurt and bleeding, when the referee is making questionable calls, and when their opponent is doing things they've never seen before. That's when champions separate themselves from everyone else. Not when everything's going according to plan, but when the plan completely disintegrates. Here's something that'll revolutionize how you think about elite competition. The greatest fighters in history weren't just physically superior to their opponents. They were masters of psychological warfare who could break someone's spirit before the first punch was thrown. They understood that fighting isn't just about technique and conditioning. It's about who can maintain their killer instinct when facing someone equally dangerous, equally prepared, equally desperate for victory. And that brings me to the most dangerous misconception plaguing modern fighters. This belief that talent alone is enough, that natural ability will carry you through the deepest waters of championship-level competition. Let me shatter that illusion right now. Talent gets you noticed. Talent gets you opportunities. But talent without an unbreakable work ethic and savage mental fortitude gets you knocked unconscious by hungrier fighters who have turned themselves into weapons through pure determination. The reality is this: every single fighter at the highest level has talent. Every single one has natural gifts that separate them from regular people. So when everyone's talented, what's the differentiator? It's who's willing to go further into the darkness, who's prepared to sacrifice more, who's developed a relationship with suffering that borders on the spiritual. Champions don't just endure pain, they transform it into fuel for their relentless pursuit of dominance. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something that separates true students of the game from casual observers. The most devastating fighters aren't necessarily the ones with the most impressive highlight reels. They're the ones who can systematically break down any opponent, regardless of style, regardless of reputation, regardless of how dangerous that person is supposed to be. They've developed such complete mastery of distance, timing, and psychological pressure that they can make elite killers look like amateurs. Now I want to address something that's been eating at me about how people analyze fights and predict outcomes. There's this tendency to get caught up in surface-level statistics and recent performances, completely ignoring the deeper currents that determine who really wins when everything's on the line. You can't judge a fighter's championship potential by watching them dominate weaker opposition. You judge it by how they respond when they're in trouble, when they're facing someone who can actually hurt them. The fighters who become legends, who get remembered long after they retire, they're not the ones who looked perfect against inferior competition. They're the ones who found ways to win when they were supposed to lose, who discovered new levels of their capabilities when their backs were against the wall. That's what creates the kind of aura that makes opponents beat themselves before the fight even starts.